technology. And at the end, we'll close with question and answer session. And at this point, I would like to mention that I'm joined here by my colleague, Patrick Walsh, who has over 10 years experience in wireless industry, both in public policy as well as in business operations. And I thought that his expertise and experience would come in very handy when, in case you have any questions, that he could help answer through his experience and knowledge. So let's start at looking at Verizon. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the company, but before we dive deeper into the presentation, I thought it would be helpful to provide you with a general overview of the company and all its business units. And while today's presentation would solely be centered around Verizon wireless initiatives, I thought it would be helpful to get a general picture of the company's operation, and particularly our international presence, given the mix of audience that we have with us today. So as you can see from the slide, Verizon is consisted of 3 business units: wireless, wireline, and enterprise business solutions. You know, the wireless side, Verizon is America's largest and most reliable 3G and 4G network. Our 3G network covers more than 290 million people, which is about 95% of the population. And our 4G LTE network, initially launched in 2010, now covers more than 240 million people in just over 370 markets in the U.S. And we plan to blanket our entire footprint by mid-2013. On the wireline side, you know, in addition to providing just general wireline phone services, Verizon also is the first company to connect fiber directly to the home on a wide basis. We deployed our fiber optic network directly to the home, and we're passing 16.5 million premises at this point. And just to mention, this is in 12 states in Washington, D.C. So it's mostly on the northeast side of the country, as well as in some south areas like Texas and also in California. And then finally, on enterprise business solutions, Verizon is a global IP leader in delivering communications and IT solutions to businesses around the world. As you can see, 99% of Fortune 1000 companies are our customers, and we offer secure global access to them in more than 2,700 cities around the world, in more than 150 countries. And we also have investments in over 80 submarine cable networks around the world. So now let's take a look at the U.S. mobile broadband marketplace. And as you will see, flexibility and competition have led to very vibrant mobile broadband markets in the U.S. Unlike in Europe and other regions, government in the U.S. did not impose any technology requirements on wireless carriers, allowing them to choose which technology to deploy and adopt. As a result, the industry split between GSM and CDMA technology, where AT&T and T-Mobile adopted GSM, whereas Sprint and Verizon adopted CDMA. So as you can see, this is a very flexible policy where carriers are in position to choose which networks to deploy, which helps in it speeds up the process of deploying networks. But however, all of the 4 major nationwide carriers have committed to LTE technology, and while Verizon, AT&T, and Sprint have begun and are in different stages of LTE deployment, T-Mobile signaled that they will begin their own LTE deployment in first half of next year. In addition to having flexibility with technology, carriers in the U.S. Also have flexibilities to choose which frequencies they want to use in order to deploy different technologies. And so, interestingly enough, Sprint was the first U.S. carrier to deploy 4G network using WiMAX technology on its 2.5 and 2.6 gigahertz spectrum that it has through its partnership with Clearwire. However, at the end of last year, Sprint announced that it will begin building its own 4G LTE network, essentially admitting that its bet on WiMAX standards was a wrong one. And so it began, a few months ago, it began deploying LTE network on its 1.9 gigahertz PCS spectrum initially, and then at a later time it will reposition its 2.5 gigahertz spectrum and 800 megahertz spectrum to complement its LTE network. On the other hand, Verizon and AT&T both began deploying their LTE networks in 700 megahertz spectrum, and Verizon did so in an upper C block, and while AT&T did in its lower B block spectrum. So Verizon, even though it announced that it will introduce its voice over LTE in 2013, will still continue to operate its CDMA network, which is currently used to deliver voice features, whereas LTE is used for data services. And this network will still be in operation for some time to come in the future. All right, so moving on, just to mention that these policies have helped U.S. get so far ahead of the world in LTE deployment for the reason that I said, flexibility of technology and frequency use, and also the competition in the industry. Now let's take a look at the some of the evolution of 4G or some of the networks. And as you can see, there was a rapid increase in speeds in a decade. 4G LTE is capable of producing the speeds that are 10 times faster than 3G networks. It produces downlink speeds of 5 to 12 megabits per second, which is a large improvement over 700 kilobits per second that 3G networks could deliver. And its uplink speeds are 2 to 4 megabits per second. And in addition to speed improvements, latency has also improved significantly, over 80%. So now how does the network performance translate into application performance? Well, as you can see in the slide, with 3G technology, consumers were mostly, checking their emails, streaming music, browsing the web, downloading some applications, and were able to watch low-resolution videos. But now with increasing speed performance, both downlink and uplink, as well as latency, consumers are moving into using high-definition, high-resolution videos, using high-definition voice over IP through various applications, including Skype. They're also heavily updating their photos and videos on social networks, which was helped through the improvements in uplink speeds of the network. And they could play very high-resolution games on their mobile devices and also watch a lot of video without having to buffer. So Netflix also is an application is now available on wireless devices. So moving on, just to give you a little history of LTE adoption. Back in 2007, when we first began exploring the idea of adopting LTE technology, in addition to performance capabilities of LTE and its high spectral efficiency, one of the main decision points were its scale and global adoption. The LTE was becoming an international standard, and so for simple international roaming capabilities and its scale, it was definitely a benefit to deploying this network. So as you can see, Verizon, Vodafone, and China Mobile definitely showed some leadership early on regarding LTE, and then we had some early adopters. But today, LTE is either adopted or in trials in over 120 countries in the world, and over 300 carriers. These are just some of the countries listed here, but there are a total of over 120 countries. We have more than 300 carriers in these countries building their own and deploying LTE. And right now, Verizon is the largest LTE network in the world. 60% of all global LTE traffic is transferred over our network, and we have just about 60% of all global customers, LTE customers, on our network. This is basically a decision path that we took in deploying the LTE technology. As you can see, in November of 2007, the decision was made and announced. We committed to LTE standards, and then in 2008, we participated in an auction 73, where we purchased 22 megahertz of paired upper 700 C block spectrum, on which today we're deploying our LTE network. And LTE trials started in 2008. We had field testing and trials of the network until the network was finally launched on December 5th of 2010, initially in 38 markets and 60 major airports around the nation, covering about 110 million people initially. So here's a slightly outdated map of our 4G as well as 3G coverage. As I said, launched in 2010, covering 38 markets. By the end of 2011, we covered more than 200 million people in the country. And currently, we cover about 240. By the end of the year, we'll cover 250 people. And by mid next year, we plan to blanket our entire 3G coverage, which covers about 95% of the country. And we are ahead of stated objectives. When we first launched it in 2010, the plan was to complete the deployment by the end of 2015, but then earlier this year, we said that that the trials are going ahead of the schedule, and the deployment is going ahead of the schedule, and that we'll have everything in place by mid next year. And here I just want to mention that Verizon is the largest rural carrier, covering over 2,000 counties in the U.S. And we'll talk more about rural applications and rural area coverage later in the presentation. Here, I just wanted to show some of the devices that LTE-capable devices that that came out since we launched the network. As you can see, early on, there were only some Wi-Fi hotspot devices. Initially, just that you can plug into your laptop. Later, real hotspots that you can connect up to 10 devices through LTE, covered with LTE network. Later, we had some smartphones and tablets and laptops. Initially, just on Android operating system, until earlier this year when Apple launched its first LTE-capable iPad. And some are speculating that the next iPhone might be LTE-capable as well, but we'll just have to wait and see when it comes out. So now I would like to say a couple words about innovation. And Verizon's commitment to innovation is best shown through our application center initiatives. Using the power of Verizon wireless 4G LTE network, Verizon innovation centers inspire and enable new innovations and help wide-ranging companies, small and medium, to develop non-traditional devices, services, and applications that take full advantage of our LTE network and bring new products to the marketplace. So, first innovation center is the LTE Innovation Center located in Waltham, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston. And in this innovation center, developers are mostly working on hardware equipment and infrastructure products, ranging from home monitoring and control systems, healthcare, visual collaboration, as well as gaming devices. And the capabilities of this center are access to Verizon's LTE network as a test bed. It also replicates real-world cell coverage conditions, so provides innovators with an environment to test their devices before launching them to the marketplace. And we also have on-site Verizon engineers to help application development staff in their ventures to develop new devices and products. Next, we have Application Innovation Center located in San Francisco, just very close to Silicon Valley. As you know, which is the center of all innovation, where entrepreneurs and technology startups, small as well as other major technology players in the world, have presence and collaborate on developing new devices and services that we all use today. This innovation center was opened in August of 2011, and it basically produces, whereas the Waltham Innovation Center produces hardware, this one produces software and applications. So it has lab environment, again, private lab spaces, demonstration, seminar areas where we invite developers and entrepreneurs to come in and test their products using our LTE network capabilities. And finally, 4G Venture Forum, located in Breckenridge, New Jersey, in our headquarters, is basically a funding opportunity for these that coordinates and collaborates with these application centers, helping developers launch their, providing seed capital and financial support for, and help commercialize next generation 4G technology that's developed in these other two innovation centers. So this overall just helps realize full benefit of our LTE technology. And as we'll see a little later, is some of the devices and services that came out of these innovation centers. Again, now we'll turn over to see some rural applications of our 4G LTE technology and discuss how it can help things like e-government, distance learning, telemedicine, sustainability, and others. So where it is critically important for rural areas and communities to have access to wireless infrastructure and broadband. And as I said earlier, Verizon is the largest rural carrier in the U.S. And for those of you that don't know, U.S. is a country with very large rural areas, other than New York City, LA, Los Angeles, Chicago, and a few other major metropolitan areas. There are very large portions of this country that are rural. And even though we cover 95% of all the people, we can't be in every rural community. So we established LTE in Rural America program to help reach additional customers. And so what some of the program details are is that Verizon Wireless leases on a long-term basis all 22 megahertz of its 700 megahertz spectrum to qualified program participants outside of Verizon's current coverage area. So the program participants, usually small rural carriers, can use our LTE network to deliver LTE services to their rural customers. It helps us provide us with different additional coverage, and it also helps them deliver, using our core network and infrastructure and our investment, also, device capabilities, and also nationwide roaming capabilities to their rural customers allows them to provide better service and faster broadband to rural areas. So in addition to mobile broadband, Verizon also provides fixed wireless service to the home in-home LTE based broadband service. And even though this service is available nationwide, it is ideal for rural areas that traditionally do not have reliable access to high broadband speeds. These are usually underserved or unserved areas of the country. And basically how this works is there's an antenna that is installed either outside or I guess on the side or in the roof of a house that picks up on LTE signal. And also there is a wireless router that is installed inside the home that can connect up to 25 devices within a home and provide LTE service inside the home to all these devices. So we basically have 5 to 12 megabits downlink and 2 to 4 megabits uplink speeds in rural communities that are usually that haven't had any traditional internet connection. And this represents a very large benefit. So these are some of the products and services that came out of our LTE innovation centers. As I said earlier, these are some of the areas that our services and devices are helping better, in general, socioeconomic benefits, provide socioeconomic benefits, and especially in rural communities. And as you can see here, we have healthcare, where we work with healthcare providers to enable virtual face-to-face visits between patients in remote areas and their physicians and healthcare providers elsewhere, through video conferencing and other capabilities the devices have, and also applications that run on wireless devices. Patients are able to send their medical information to their physicians and doctors from rural areas directly, so the doctors can monitor their health condition and suggest proper treatment for their condition. Another area that the LTE technology provides great benefit is education. In addition to providing online secondary education capabilities to places, to rural and hard-to-reach places, and extending classroom resources to students, LTE technology is really helping students become better engaged in classroom, even from remote areas. And as you can see here in the slide, this robot called Vigo is LTE capable and has a camera and a screen up on its upper part, so that children that live in rural areas or are otherwise prevented from participating physically in the classroom could, through their wireless device, could connect to this Vigo robot, who would go to the classroom for them, and through the camera that it has, and see the classroom, and so the student sitting at home can see the classroom and his teacher through a wireless device, while other students and teachers could see him through the screen on the robot, enabling students to communicate and participate in class discussion, answer questions, and otherwise simulate his presence in a physical classroom environment. This not only helps students become better, gain better social skills and public speaking skills, but also it's shown that such education devices can help better students' learning, and they show better school results as a result of having such devices. And finally, LTE technology can help with sustainability, mainly through its ability to produce and deliver real-time energy consumption data to consumers, either through their mobile devices or other devices placed in their home. Basically, each and every device within their house could be connected through a chip, through a and monitor for energy consumption, so that consumers could have real-time energy consumption data on their palm of their hands, so that they could manage, rather than as opposed to getting energy bill at the end of the month, they could monitor their day-to-day, even hour-to-hour energy consumption, which has proven to the awareness of that has proven to decrease energy consumption by about 20% so far. So with that, I would like to thank you for participating on this in today's webinar, and again, thanks to DiploFoundation for allowing me to speak and address you today, talking about LTE capabilities and its rural broadband applications. So at this time, I would be available to take any questions that you might have. And again, I just want to remind you that I'm joined here by my colleague, Patrick Walsh, who can help us answer any questions that you might have about LTE technology. Okay, here we have a couple questions that we just received. First, um, first question is, how does Milan/Verizon see the role of telecoms in development as support to inclusion and global participation? Well, I can take a stab at this first and see if my colleague would like to add anything, or if he can just take the next question. Well, I would say, as I was saying earlier, that LTE capabilities, capabilities of LTE technology to deliver services to areas that are rural and have not been reached before, definitely allow for inclusion of additional customers and people that haven't traditionally had opportunities to have access to internet into the ecosystem. And now with the speeds of the wireless broadband speeds that are comparable to traditional wireline speeds and even faster, we have a wide range of opportunities for people to engage in, using various applications to engage in, different verticals, including, receive education through wireless devices, participate in financial services that are offered, use e-government opportunities, as well as telemedicine and other capabilities that are brought to us by the power of LTE technology. Again, reaching more people and including further portions of population into this broadband success is just going to provide both social and economic benefits to more people worldwide. Patrick, would you like to take the next one?
Sure, Milan. Looks like the next question is, it reads, is there any reason why voice and data will be run on separate networks into the foreseeable future? I would have thought that LTE could support both voice and data. Actually, LTE can support both voice and data. Verizon will be rolling out its voice over LTE in 2013. But right now, all of our voice traffic is carried on our CDMA network, which is nationwide. And I would envision that the CDMA network will continue to operate alongside our LTE network for the foreseeable future. But I definitely would see the convergence in the not too distant future of voice and data on a single network, merely because it's more cost effective to have one network handle all the traffic, one general purpose network, and not have a network for data and a separate network for voice. I think in the future, everything will be run over a general purpose IP network.
Sure. Next question is deploying of LTE significantly more expensive? Well, significantly more expensive as opposed to wireline network, I would say yes, because rather than having to deploy wireline, either copper or fiber, to rural or other areas through LTE wireless network, it can decrease those costs and can allow people to leapfrog the technology and offer directly LTE wireless capabilities to its customers. Now, using 700 megahertz spectrum for LTE technology is very beneficial because of its propagations. That radio waves, radio frequencies are longer and can reach wider areas of a region, so that a carrier deploying LTE on 700 megahertz would need to have fewer towers deployed in order to reach larger areas, again, decreasing the cost of deploying these networks, as opposed to either using other technologies or using the same technologies in higher spectrum bands or deploying wireline networks. Okay. Sure. Dear speaker, Milan Vukovic, could you summarize in short words your speech, because the quality of sound was not very good? Sure. And I guess I'll just highlight some of the main points for you. First of all, I would say that flexibility and competition and exclusion were some of the policies that enabled very vibrant market in the U.S. and allowing carriers to choose which technology to deploy and how to use their spectrum frequencies, giving them flexibility there, was definitely one of the things that produced such a large lead in LTE deployment that we have in as the rest of the world. Secondly, I would say that LTE is able to produce, to deliver innovation and help social economic benefits the economy in general in social and economic ways. And again, another point would be that LTE capabilities are definitely very applicable and suitable for rural coverage. And Verizon, through its LTE in Rural America program, is definitely working with rural carriers to deliver better broadband experience to rural areas of the country that traditionally have not had service or were underserved. I guess those would be the three main bullet points that or takeaways from this presentation that I would mention here.
Okay, the next couple questions have to do with sharing and frequencies, what LTE frequencies. First question reads, can operators share LTE spectrum allocations, for example, both wanting spectrum in the same band? And the next question is, at what frequencies do LTE operate? And are those frequencies different from that of 3G? First, with the sharing question, it's generally accepted that two different users cannot share the same set of frequencies at the same geographic location at the same time. There are, I think, opportunities with LTE to have a wholesale basis where you build one set of towers using the same antennas, which is called the radio access network. And then have operators have different cores that would take care of all the billing, and that would greatly reduce the cost of building out the radio access network infrastructure. In that sense, the carriers would share the same set of frequencies. They would share a part of the same network, but have their own cores or their own switches, packet switches. And that would be a great way for operators to reduce costs. The next question had to do with frequencies for LTE. LTE is really frequency agnostic, meaning it doesn't need a particular set of frequencies. I think worldwide 3GPP has specified 36, 37, 38 different bands that LTE can operate in. Now, different countries can allocate frequencies differently. Here in the United States, the FCC does not specify specific bands for technology. So, for instance, in the recently conducted 700 megahertz auction, the FCC didn't specify that had to be an LTE band. Nothing would prevent an operator from launching GSM in that band. But because LTE is so much more efficient, generally believe that LTE will be deployed in newer allocations on a going forward basis. Other countries, other parts of the world, like Europe, have historically licensed spectrum based on technology. So you may recall last decade, much of Europe auctioned off 3G spectrum, which was designed for UMTS. And I'm not sure how that will be going forward. I think the U.S. model allows for greater flexibility and the ability for carriers to refarm or repurpose their older allocations. So we've already seen some carriers, as Milan mentioned, Sprint, refarming or repurposing their PCS spectrum, which was CDMA, and they're now launching LTE on that spectrum. You see carriers like T-Mobile, T-Mobile USA, repurposing its PCS spectrum, which was GSM, into HSPA+, and that will allow them to repurpose their AWS spectrum, which they originally launched with HSPA, into LTE. So that sort of flexibility allows operators to meet the growing demands of customers without having to go to the government and ask for additional allocations. Milan?
Thank you, Patrick. Well, it seems like that participants are asking for a short summary for those who couldn't hear very well. So I will, in addition to providing a copy of this presentation directed to DiploFoundation, I will also put a 1 or 2 slides of summary of the whole presentation that I will share with Diplo staff so that they can share with people and send it out to anyone that couldn't hear the presentation or had any other difficulties seeing or hearing what I was referring to. So again, I think I'll have a short summary by maybe the end of the day today. I remember it's early morning here in Washington, so I may, for some of you, maybe tomorrow, but we'll get that to you and make sure that you get all the main points from this presentation. I guess there was another question regarding sharing frequencies that I think Patrick just answered in previous question regarding 1.9 and 1.8 GSM bands. You know, as we said, Sprint is now going to be using their or its 1.9 gigahertz spectrum to launch LTE initially, and then later supplement it with 2.5 and 800 megahertz. So I guess that would answer all of your questions that we have listed here. Yes, if we don't have any additional questions, we would like to thank you again for participating and close this presentation for today. Again, you have my email listed on the slide in case you have any follow-up questions or anything that you can think of additionally. I'll be happy to provide those answers to you and answer your questions. So again, thank you for participating, and thank you to DiploFoundation for facilitating this event. And thank you to Patrick for joining us.
Thank you all for participating, and thank you, Milan, for such a great presentation. As we mentioned earlier, follow-up will be on our site alongside with the recording and the material used for this presentation. Good to see you guys again, and I'm sure next month is going to be again exciting and about something new, and of course in the field of internet governance. Thank you, Ginger and all. This room will be closed in 10 minutes.